Alright guys, what's going on? I told you guys I was going to do a video on this, sort of a pseudo review, or not so much a review, just my final thoughts on it. But if you guys have been following my previous channels and stuff, when I get something like a mouse or something, I don't jump into a review right away. I use it for usually a couple of weeks to, in some cases like this, I've been using it for 5 months. And so I've gotten to know this device really, really well. And I'll tell you how it works in my day-to-day life, and then you can kind of figure out if that's going to work for you. But it's a $300 device, so there are some shortcomings to the way it's made and stuff, and we'll talk about that. But I will tell you straight up that this so far is actually my favorite Nintendo. So I have a belief about Nintendo and Sony, and I think they're actually the real competitors in this console market. The way I see the two consoles, if you're somebody that when you sit down and play a game, you really want an interesting story to be told, and you want good gameplay, but the story's obviously the forefront of what you're looking for. I believe that's where Sony comes in. But if you're somebody that wants the gameplay to be fun and you don't care so much about the story, and that's how I am personally, you're going to go more towards Nintendo. I love the Uncharted series, and I love the story that was being told in the Uncharted series, because I'm very much a fan of stuff like Indiana Jones, for instance. But I got a little bit burned out after 3. I've still never played 4. And if you look at the gameplay evolution of those games between 1 and 4, it's really not that different. It really isn't. They all play pretty much alike. Where if you look at something like Super Mario Brothers, Mario, whether it's 64, this newest one, Odyssey, or Galaxy, or something like that, it all comes down to he's essentially saving Peach in every single one. But if you look at the gameplay mechanics of all those games and how they've evolved over the years, it's all very different. So that would be a good example of the difference between the two. And that if you're somebody that's more of a gameplay person and less about story, then that's who this is for. Also, I feel like Nintendo's done a better job of really emphasizing indies on their console than even like Sony has. Sony did a good job starting off, but I feel like Nintendo lends itself a little bit better for one reason and one reason only. And that reason is that this can be taken off the dock and taken with you. And a lot of indie games largely play the same whether they're on a PS4 or a Switch, because indie developers do not develop for really high-end hardware most of the time. Most of the time. Not all indie developers, but most try to keep their games running on everything, because small indie developers need to make sure their games run on everything to ensure the best profit. And when you look at it that way, the games run and look just as well on NIS that are available on both consoles. There are games that are not available on both consoles. And so that's something to consider. If you're somebody that really likes indie games and you play a lot of indie games and you don't play a lot of third-party AAA stuff on top of that, I would say the Switch is for you. And I'm really glad to see Nintendo go with the Nindies direction, is what they call it, where they're really trying to make a push for independent games on here. Because I feel like the spirit of a lot of independent games is stuff that came from back in the Nintendo 16-bit, 32-bit or 64-bit days for them. Okay, so first part we're talking about is build quality. The device is overall fairly solid. It is a $300 device, so with the silicon being in there and what they're trying to deliver for the $300 experience with all the other stuff like Joy-Con grips, the Joy-Cons, the tablet, and all that stuff itself, and a dock, they had to use plastic on pretty much everything. And in some areas, it's pretty smart. Like, the screen's not glass. They know that probably kids are going to have this too. And would you rather have scratched plastic or broken glass? So that's one thing. What I would tell you is first thing you should do with this as soon as you get it is buy a screen protector. If you get a Nintendo Switch, try to find the box, set upright like this and not on its back. The reason being is if you see a pile of them on their back, these literally are sitting right beneath the cardboard layer, and then underneath it, that's the dock. So the dock's only got a thin piece of plastic on the front. So what happens is as more of these are stacked on top of each other, the weight of it will push down on all these units, and on top of that, the dock. And I've seen people actually take the dock out where it's actually like kind of like bent a little bit, and so when you put this in and out a few times, what will happen is you'll actually scratch the plastic on the screen because your dock was compressed down when they had it in storage in the store or on the truck or something. Okay, a lot of people have asked, when you're playing it in portable mode, does it feel solid? There's a little bit of wiggle. The other thing, the Joy-Cons themselves, I'm guessing to cut down on cost, the rail on the Joy-Con and the latch is plastic as opposed to metal like on the Switch itself. I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but with wear and tear, just normal use, you probably will see the latch wear down. Mine's got a little bit of wear, but using it the last 5 months, sliding it in and out of rail for whatever reason here or there, and putting it like in different grips and stuff, it seems to be mostly fine. When you release this, you do have to push the button in. Otherwise, this railing or this track, like on the side of the Switch itself, is actually metal, and this is actually quite sharp. If you just try to force this off, it's going to, over time, cut down that latch on there. So you have to make sure you press the buttons in. If you're really anal, and I'm usually not, I don't do this, and my latches have held up pretty good over time, you can hold the button in as you slide it in, let go, and then it shouldn't slide up against the plastic at all. But I've really not had any issues. There are metal Joy-Con latches that you can get for like $10, and they come with like everything, like the screwdriver and everything you need to replace it. So if you really want to do that, you can. The way I see it is, by the time the latches wear down on this thing, I think the Joy-Cons are going to be pretty worn out, and I'm going to want to get new ones anyways. Even though when I got this in July and this problem was supposed to be fixed, and man, that looks really strange on the camera, doesn't it? That like neon red. It looks really good in real life, but the C922 is like, oh my god, it's so much red. Anyways, this thing, the right Joy-Con has like the little infrared sensor nobody uses, and the NFC reader on top of all the other stuff like the HD Rumble and all that. I've had issues where the signal drops out. I've actually had issues where the signal drops out from like 3 feet because I put it underneath my big desk, and I have a big wood desk here, and this thing will actually kind of kill the signal on it. So that's unfortunate. I can send it in, and supposedly Nintendo's got a way to boost the signal on these. The other thing I've noticed is that the right Joy-Con battery will actually die a little bit quicker than the left, and I'm guessing that's because of all the extra stuff like the NFC and the camera in there. If there is a revision of the Switch, I don't see them sticking with this camera in the future. Okay, third-party docks. My advice is don't use them. Pay the extra money for the Nintendo one. This is mostly due to some kind of circuitry issue, power circuitry issue. Apparently the Switch's USB-C is out of the USB-C spec, and they're doing something crazy with the power where they're trying to charge the device and power at the same time, and so there's some kind of situation if you happen to run into it where you need to do like a charge of the Joy-Cons, the Switch, and power the console in docked mode. Apparently that can cause you to actually fry, not so much brick your Switch. People are saying bricking, but you're actually kind of frying it is what you're doing. Alright, and the last thing build quality wise I can talk about that I found to be any kind of problem is the kickstand. It does, yes, I can confirm, get a little wobbly after a bit of use. And I've used it very little, but it's still latching down. I've seen these kickstands online for $3. And so you can get a new kickstand if it's an issue. These are actually designed to pop out, so in case if you have it out like this and go into dock, it will actually pop out on purpose so you don't damage the Switch. So replacing it's fairly easy. The next thing I've heard, and I've not seen myself, is apparently these back plates and up in here, they tend to crack and break. And also I've seen a few people actually break off their game card. This is the part that made me nervous, because when I had a PSP, it had a similar door like this, and I actually started to wear this out pretty quickly. On the Switch, it's actually held up fairly nice. It's not had any problems. But the cool thing is all these parts, the back plate, this and this, are all accessible by removing this back piece, and it just takes a few screws, and this is out, and they actually make replacements for all this. I think the back plate was like $10, and this little door for the game card is also like $3, so it's not a big deal. Okay, the Pro Controller. Do you get it? Do you not get it? There is 8BitDo controllers out there that work with the Switch. There's a couple other third-party like PowerAs and stuff. It depends on what you want. I just wanted a first party controller, so it was $60. I knew I was just going to get this and be done because I could use the Joy-Cons as a second controller or third controller if I needed to. So for me, this is pretty well built and runs really well. I've had no signal drop-offs with this whatsoever. The signal is strong on this thing. However, I will tell you when the US, or when I did need to like do an Amiibo read or something, the NFC reader on this is pretty bad. Like, I'm sitting here like rubbing the thing like a genie's bottle hoping that it'll read, where on the Switch's Joy-Con it's literally, okay, you need to read it, bing, done. It's that quick. So there's something with the NFC reader on there. It's not as sensitive and kind of sucks. Other than that, I've got nothing really bad to say about it because it is pretty solid. The battery does take a while to charge on this because the rechargeable battery is actually a 3DS battery, which is not the quickest battery to recharge. Okay, so the other thing we're going to talk about is the UI. The UI is really good. It's really fast, snappy, gets to everywhere where you need to go. The thing I like is the store launches in like 3 to 5 seconds. It takes like no time for the store to launch. But there's some weird kind of like quirky things about the UI that kind of bug me. So let's talk about the first one. Themes. There's actually an option to use custom themes on the Switch UI. However, since launch, and since I've certainly gotten it back in July, it has not changed from a dark theme or the regular white theme. That's the only two that they have given you. Even hackers that have hacked the Switch have made it so you could use like different types of themes and layouts and stuff. Seems like a really weird missed opportunity, and especially for a console where they sell you Joy-Cons that are different colors to put on there to customize your Switch, and different bundles like the Pokemon one that has like different designs in the back and stuff like that. This should be like not that difficult. Like, let's say I get Bayonetta 2, which I did get Bayonetta 2. And so Bayonetta 2, why would it be, they can't take up that much memory to put like a theme for Bayonetta 2 on the game card or when you download the game and then have that pop up in the themes option is like, now you can use like the Bayonetta 2 theme or something like that. That would be a cool thing that Nintendo could have done to make this device a little bit more personalized in a way. So yeah, the Switch is only 32 gigs of storage, unfortunately. So the thing I will tell you about that is I don't think it's as big of a deal. We're getting to the point now in December where 256 gig cards that are fast enough to work on the Switch, you know, just basically have to read it like 60 megs or faster for the games to work, are like $45 to $65 for a 256. I've put a 64 gig in there because I didn't have a whole lot of money right off the bat when I got the Switch. And the 64 gig is holding its own. I still haven't run out of memory. I've got stuff on there like Bayonetta 1. And the only game I've really run into that's a problem is LA Noire. Will eat up the entire card, but I'm not playing it right now, so I don't have it on there. So it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, and then the other thing about the SD cards is if you turn the console off, you can actually load multiple SD cards in. It doesn't like have some kind of weird key where it locks like that one SD card just to that one Switch. You can actually have multiple SD cards and swap them out with different games on them. The store, like I said, is fast and snappy. It's got some nice features like if you see something on there but you can't get it right away and you want to be able to find it later, there is a wish list function, which is something that I think is absolutely necessary for any storefront. Some people said it looks dated. To me, a store doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be able to tell me what the game's about, maybe show me a video or something and be done. The one thing that is missing is user reviews. I would prefer to see user reviews on the game because there's a lot of craptastic games on the Switch store like any other online store. The nice thing about that is the curated sections that Nintendo has on there is pretty well done. They don't put a lot of really bad games on there. As a matter of fact, I haven't really seen any bad games on the curated section, so they're allowing those games to be on there, but they're not really pushing them, if you know what I mean. So that's nice. The other thing that's nice about the store is the new points system. So points work either when you get a game on the store online, you just automatically get them, or if you actually get a Switch game card. And some of you guys that just got Smash Brothers need to listen up right now. There is a place when you put the game card in the options that you go to say, My Redeem Nintendo Awards or something like that. And you go in there and you hit it and it checks to see if you redeemed it yet. So for Bayonetta 2, I got 50 points, which is equivalent to 50 cents off my next purchase on the store. And ironically enough, when I redeemed the code for Bayonetta 1, it gave me 150, which is $1.50. So I will say that online store purchases seem to give you more points than game cards, which is odd. And the other thing I've noticed is that if you want to save some money and you don't mind buying more SD cards down the road, it seems to be cheaper to get games on average on the online store, on the Nintendo Switch eShop store, whatever they want to call it, as to buying the physical games. Amazon, you can get some pretty good deal for the physical games, but for the most part, some of the sales that they've had on the store have been very Steam-like. A lot of Nintendo first-party games don't go on sale, but a lot of the other stuff does, like actually quite often. It's kind of surprising. Last thing to say about the store is when you get something, how fast does it take to download? This is dependent. So most Switches I feel out there are going to be just hooked up to Wi-Fi, and this is dependent on what kind of router you have and whatnot. I have a pretty decent router. I have a Nighthawk. I can still only get about 50 megs down through the wireless. So if you want to get a faster speed than that, I haven't tested the top end because my top end download is 100 megs. But you can get a LAN adapter. Apparently that LAN adapter had issues. They've been mostly fixed now. So you can actually get the full speed. And from what I hear, like 100 megs is not an issue to get a game to download at that speed off the Nintendo store, which is pretty good compared to last Nintendo online experiences. Alright, now this is the really, really ugly part, and we're going to talk about it right now. The Nintendo Online service. Okay, now, if you're just going to play Fortnite on this thing, and I believe stuff like Warframe also, they don't go through Nintendo's online. They handle that through their own servers, and they even have their own voice chat clients, so you just plug your headphones into the Switch's headphone jack, and you can just talk that way through like your gaming headset or something. The service has some cool things. I like the Nintendo games that they're giving you for free, almost like a Netflix subscription. It's also not terribly expensive. However, I'm going to say this once again. I don't care what the price is. When you're somebody that pays for your internet service provider to be online, to pay extra fees to be connected to your friends to play games, I still see as a ransom fee, and that's period. Now, I understand that they have servers and stuff they have to upkeep, and as long as it's not too bad, like $20 is not too bad, I'm okay with it. But there's one feature that is very irritating that it's missing. And it should be there regardless. It should have been there day one, and it makes me very mad. So on a Nintendo Switch UI, just like every other console, when one of my friends pops up and plays something like Bayonetta 2, or Smash Brothers, or Mario Kart, it will actually pop on and say your friend is playing such and such game or whatever. That's great. I know about it. Guess what? There's no way on a Nintendo Switch to type or send an audio message, or even just a thing to say, hey, I would like to play this game with you. Just like any kind of flag or nothing. There's nothing. So I have to rely going to my phone and taking out whether it's Twitter or Discord or something and sending a message on the phone, hoping that they have their notifications on and that they will see it. It would have been so much better if there's a thing that pops up on their screen that they can't miss while they're playing, saying such and such sent you a message. That's essential to me. You need to have that in an online service, and it not being there is asinine. The other thing that irritates me is the online app. When they originally said they were going to have this, they were talking about things like not only being able to send messages to your friends, but setting up play dates. Like, I'm a child and I need to be set up a play date, but there you go. And things like that. None of that crap's there. There's some extra stuff for Splatoon as far as like stats and all that, but they've not developed that app really at all. And it kind of makes me wonder if they're just kind of like leaving it and maybe doing something else in the future, because it has not changed or evolved. You can open a chat room through your phone if you want to do that and chat with your friends when you're playing a game. You have to get their attention and let them know that you want to play the game somehow. If you're lucky enough to be able to do that, then you can go play the game, and then you guys can get in a chat room and talk it up in supported games only. And right now the only supported games is pretty much Nintendo games, because nobody else is signing up for that. That's just weird and stupid. Okay, one last thing I'm going to say here that actually came up yesterday. So I got Bayonetta 2 for the Switch. It was on sale. And when I got it, it was cellophane wrapped and everything, and I had opened it up, and there's a code in here for Bayonetta 1. That's part of the reason you get this, is Bayonetta 1's also supposed to be included in this. It is only a download, though. And I tried to redeem it on the store, and it said it did not recognize the code. And I'm thinking to myself, well, crap. I contacted Nintendo through their online chat, which is on their website. It took me about 15 minutes to send them some pictures of my proof of purchase and the old code. And within an hour, somebody had emailed me with a new code to get Bayonetta 1, and it worked. So, hey, there's one thing positive to say about Nintendo support. Matter of fact, I will say that in most of my past instances when I had a 3DS and stuff and I've had an issue, whether it was something broke or whatnot, Nintendo's been pretty awesome, and more than often, Nintendo's actually even repaired some of my past consoles out of warranty. Alright, so that's it for my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch. Let me know if you have any comments down below, any questions. I'll try to get answers to you if there's something I didn't cover in this video. If you liked what you see, please hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell. Just dingle my bell on your way out, you know. Not like in that kind of way, but just so you can get notifications when a new video goes up. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Later.